I would say the most important piece of gear that I have is a Gibson Grabber that I got, which is a bass, if you don't know what a Gibson Grabber is. I got it probably like 7 years ago. We were recording with Brian McTernan, and one of his friends had actually purchased this bass from a local like pawn shop or guitar shop, and it was really cheap. I got it off of him for like $275 or something like that, and it's the best sounding bass, the best. I wouldn't say it plays better than any bass I've ever had, but it sounds awesome, and it's really turned into like my sound, which I kind of borrowed from the bass player of Botch and also the bass player of Cave-In. I really like their tones, and yeah, so I think it's a 76 Gibson Grabber bass.
At this point, I have to go with just my main guitar live is I use Line 6 Variax that I've transplanted into other guitars, but we do so many different kinds of tunings and tones, so I'm able to have on the guitar, like, I think I use like, I don't know, tons of different settings, probably 7 different tunings, and I play it all on the same guitar without changing anything on the guitar, so I don't know, they're pretty cool, especially if you're starting out, like, and you want to find out what kind of tones you like. There's like a $300 model that's all the same sounds as the other ones, but for live, it's definitely very indispensable.
Yeah, we have so many tunings that I kind of wish I had something like that, just because in a live setting, like switching between tunings between songs and having things flow.
Yeah, it helps now that I have that, because at least I can switch quickly while other people are trading guitars in and out. It makes our tech's job easier.
I would say, aside from my CNC drum kit,
drumsticks.
Yeah, I would need drumsticks to play. Besides the CNC kit, which is hands down the best kit I've ever played or had, and it's not really a musical instrument. It's my MacBook Pro, just because it's given me the ability with programs like Logic or Reason to capture ideas at any time, whether I'm at home or on the road. Just having a variety of platforms to take an idea from my head and put it on an instrument without having a studio at my disposal has been really valuable, and I'm not trying to remember riffs or drum parts that I worked out by playing my knees or humming it to myself, and having them change by the time I get home or by the time I can actually record them. It's just been really valuable as far as writing goes, and then we're using a laptop now on stage, running Reason, run some keyboard sounds through that, so that's been really helpful.
I don't know, I guess for me, I guess personally for me, the most important thing for me, I think maybe is maybe my piano, I guess. I have a piano that I've had since I was a little kid. I think it was like the first actual instrument that I owned, and yeah.
I think the most embarrassing moment on stage, we were in Japan in front of a ton of people at some festival, and we started at Artist in the Ambulance. I started it because I play the beginning and sing, but completely forgot all the words, and I was just like mumbling along.
I don't remember that at all.
You don't remember? I just completely botched it again, but everyone's like clap. I couldn't like stop, and it was just like, which I do a fair amount, but yeah, that's a pretty bad spot to do it on. I just couldn't recover. It was pretty bad. So finally, we all just came in and.
I don't remember that.
No,
I really don't.
I felt bad. We only played 2 shows in Japan, and that was one of them. But I felt forgetting lyrics, because lyrics are stored in your head in a way that is not like lyrics and music, once you've been playing it for a while, it's stored not in like a conscious part of your brain. It's just you get used to playing it, and it kind of comes out naturally. So if you start overthinking it, you completely forget what you're supposed to do. So the more you think about what lyric is next, the more you can't remember.
What about the one time in Jersey? Didn't you?
I ran off the stage.
Yeah, I didn't see it. I missed it. I actually was.
I ran off of a stage once because there's like a front thing, and it was dark, really dark on the side, and I was up there playing, and I ran to the side, and it was about yay tall, and I just ate it. I think I landed on my back or something. I don't know. I didn't break the guitar, so that's good.
I have moments where I brain fart, and I remember there have been a lot of them, but I think one of the worst times, I think it was Orlando on Warped Tour in 2005 maybe, and my back was acting kind of weird, so my brain was like not in the right place, not where it needed to be. I was thinking about my back and then thinking about, oh my God, what if this ends up like 2003 where I missed 3 shows, and how bad is this going to get, and how am I going to get it fixed, and I'm on the other side of the country and I can't get back to my chiropractor, I can't do this. And there's like a tom break in Artist in the Ambulance, and that part came, and my head was totally somewhere else, and then that part was about to come. It was maybe 3 seconds before that part, and all of a sudden I'm back, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm playing at Warped Tour, and then what part comes next? And the answer that my head gave me was like, screw it. No part comes next. You're getting nothing. So we go into, it's supposed to go to this tom part, and then my brain went numb, and then my body went numb, and I just kind of like, it's the weirdest feeling. It's like in a dream, when, like if it's a fighting dream, and some guy hits you, and you go to hit him, and your hand just goes like that, or like you try to kick him, and your leg doesn't work anymore. That's what happened to me in real life. So I'm just sitting there kind of like T-Rex arming this drum part, just like, and then looking out at the crowd, and there's like a lot of people there, like maybe 15, 20,000, and it's like nobody else is playing. It's a drum break, and I'm just like, no. So, I mean, eventually I ended up getting it back together, but those moments are always a little embarrassing.
I don't remember that either.
I certainly do.
On you than
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think just.
It's like if you had a guitar solo, and then right when it came, you just went,
Yeah, but at least with the guitar, you can kind of like.
You can fake
Yeah, you can fake it. You could just like strum a chord,
Yeah.
or like, oh no, my guitar's not working. I'm not.
it's like flashing lights and. God.
I would say, and Riley can probably share this with me, the most embarrassing moment that I have ever had was when we played K-Rock Acoustic Christmas.
No. Yeah.
We weren't prepared.
Erase that.
Yeah, we weren't prepared at all. We had all these plans. We wanted to do strings, and we had like people come out and sing, and it was like going to be this cool thing, but we weren't prepared at all. We didn't know what was going on. Everything was behind. The set changes happened too fast. Yeah, we showed up late. It was just ridiculous. So we play the first song, and it's like, it's all right. And then the second song is Stare at the Sun acoustic, and Dustin starts playing, but since we're on in-ears, I know I'm saying you embarrassed me, but I'm just saying the situation was embarrassing.
I wasn't embarrassed because
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't know what was happening, but
So he starts playing the Stare at the Sun, and then starts singing, but there's no guitar going through, but he can hear it in his in-ear, so he thinks it's fine, and then it's just a cappella
song.
Stare at the Sun. And Riley and I are sitting behind the drum set, like, because we kind of like step back, and we were just going, oh no. Yeah, like,
Please.
what do we do? Like, what I don't know. I don't know what to do. Like it was just like one of those moments where you're so flustered that you just can't think.
It was the anxiety dream come to life.
It was so bad. And then
Then we had out of tune strings come in.
well, I ended up running out my vocal mic to his guitar, and it was just like a mess. And then after that, strings come in. We hadn't had a chance to like tune the guitars with the strings, so the strings weren't tuned. So everybody was just trying to find
each other. They couldn't hear the music.
Everybody's trying to find notes, and we just kept playing, and we pretended that nothing was happening, and it was just yeah.
It was bad.
It was bad.
So uncomfortable.
And it's like, it's that, you're playing, I mean, we were playing to
A seated like arena type.
a lot of people that have no clue what we're about, what we do, if this is like normal or what.
We
I
suck
think,
all the time.
I think it's,
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, cool.
I think it was on the radio too, or like,
It's very live.
yeah, so it was just like,
Who knows how many people?
No set list. Just start the song that you feel is right, and then we'll just.
yeah, it was so bad. And then I think I felt the effects of that for months after, like just no confidence at all in anything.
It was just so stressful though, because like the flight got canceled, delayed, and then canceled, and then we roll in and miss the sound check. But then they gave us like 5 minutes, and everybody was like rushing to get ready and sound check. And then we sound check for like a minute, and they're like, "You're done." And then we're thinking, "Oh man, we have all this stuff planned, but we don't really have it like worked out. How is it going to work? Screw it, it'll work itself out." And then you get on stage, and it's just like snowball of wrongness, just blah.
That was,
Yeah. I remember looking at you behind the amps, and we were just like, "How do you make it stop?"
yeah. How do I
Can
disappear?
I go home?
How do I disappear
We still have
completely?
6 songs to play.
I don't have any real formal training with recording, so I don't really have any good educated tips, I guess. But
Do what sounds good?
yeah, I mean, just trust your ears, I guess, is the best thing to do. You know.
Because I think a lot of people, once they get too used to doing stuff, they're no longer hearing things the same way. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Feel free to experiment.
There's no way that something's supposed to sound. That's, I think, a big mistake that people make. And
Well, that, and I feel like a lot of people become audiophiles, and you start like making records for audiophiles. You know what I mean? Like, you listen to a record and you're like, "Oh, that sounds funny at 60 hertz. I don't know." You know, like, "Oh, the 2K is a little harsh on this," or something. But it's like, dude, 95% of the people in the world don't hear things that way. You know what I mean? So it's like
99.9.
yeah, exactly. And you're only making this sound that good to please that like small community of people that might hear
Which
that.
will probably disagree with you anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like just you know, I feel like recording music is its sole purpose is to translate the music onto like a recorded format, I guess.
And to, like, I think,
To
like, give it or like help maintain its character and like.
yeah, I mean, I guess like the most important thing is you're recording this music for people to listen to, and so.
I think it's just as important as the writing of the music. I mean, especially in how we did it, because like the mood and the vibe that you make with the song is really important, and almost probably like 50% of that really depends on how you present it recording-wise too, you know?
Especially with different kinds of music too. Like I think you can have a really stripped down song that like sounds good in a lot of formats, but then like as you start getting these textures, it's really going to influence how it ends up sounding. So I think a good thing to do is like really think about the feel and the vibe that you're trying to create with the song, and use that as like a direction. I know you're doing that a lot on all, especially on this project, because we had these like themes in mind. So we're trying to like get this watery type tone, and we're thinking, how can we do that? What can we do to like facilitate that? And we go back and listen and be like, you know, I think we could do this. So.
Yeah, so I guess the main point is just think just don't get caught up in all the crazy technical things, and just trust your ears and do what sounds and feels the best.
Try to open your mind to as many styles of music as you possibly can as early as you can, which is kind of hard when you're young. But the bigger, I guess, like sound bank of, you know, ideas and tones that you have to draw from, I think, the, you know, better picture of the sound you're trying to create you can make, instead of just like, oh, I only listen to bands that sound like this. So if I do something that doesn't sound like that, it's the wrong thing to do.
I feel like it can also open up your perspective, even on the specific thing that you're playing. You know, I feel like I've grown so much as a musician, I guess, just from, you know, growing in my musical taste, that even playing older songs now, I feel like I have a different and better perspective on how to play it than I did when we first did it.
As far as writing for the Water record, in general, for this whole project, we were bringing a bunch of ideas. We sat down and kind of cataloged all the ideas we had and tried to see where they were going. And for the Water one, I think it was a lot of bringing an idea to the table and then kind of sitting down and building it as a song, almost track by track, instead of jamming it out, trying to create it in the recording process more so than in a live setting, which is something we did with Atlantic on Visu. It was the first time we'd really done that. So we'd have, you know, the basis of a song, maybe a programmed loop and some kind of keyboard part going, and we'd kind of take that and go. And the other cool thing that we did on this record, as far as recording programs, was we did a lot in GarageBand for demoing, and then end up keeping a bunch of those files on different songs, just because there was a vibe to it that you couldn't really replicate. I mean, you're playing through, you know, some amp simulator on the computer with a guitar like plugged straight in, but it ended up having this weird vibe that was cool. And it's like, you don't have to go back and like, oh, we got to use the vintage Morgelbot to, like, you know, we tried it a couple times and we're like, oh, and it was like, it just has a cool vibe, especially playing. I mean, there'd be a Water part and I'd be like, I want something kind of like this, and I would just play it in my file, and then it sounded awesome. And it was like, I was never gonna play it that loose or that I don't know, thoughtlessly again. You just sometimes you could start overthinking everything.
Yeah. Many of the ideas, though, were us recording stuff on our computers and then bouncing them between each other, which I think is like a majority of how we do all of our writing now. I mean, we jam stuff out, but especially with the Water stuff, it's fun. It allows you to, like, kind of manipulate things in ways that you might not be able to in a live setting.
We're in the future.
Yeah, futuristic stuff.
I don't know. When I read that question, I feel like some of it is like there's a relevance to it, but also I think that there's a lot of like romanticizing of the past involved in even thinking that oh, it used to be better. I mean, I think we're always inclined to make that assumption, and I just don't think. I mean, I think in certain cases, you know, you can point to things that show it to be true, but it's just everything's so different that it's hard to even evaluate that. I mean, now we have so many more access to so many more forms of music and artists, and you're kind of flooded with it, whereas before, you know, you had either a couple people playing locally or you had only the things that were being played on the radio. And so I think it was maybe easier for things to become iconic and not be flooded with so many things. But I don't know. It seems kind of like a pessimistic view, and I get that feeling. I'm bummed out on a lot of the stuff that's like happening around, but I don't know if there's like a way to like look at it and just be like, this is how it will be better. Or
Yeah, it's hard to compare it, I think, to the past because, like you're saying, it's so different. It's so different. Yeah, like I feel like, comparing now and the 20s, just the state of everything is so different that it's hard to evaluate like where music stands in society, I guess. Like unless you were actually there in the 20s or whatever.
I think that all that, like the watered down, less creative, like less culturally impacted or impactuous music has always existed. Like if you look at like jazz, there was like all these musicians that were making all this amazing music, and then there'd be the people that ripped it off and did a watered down version of it, and then they'd become super popular, and that's how it works. And I mean through everything there's been these like the really like commercial, like less impactful music, and then there's some bands that just pop out that are like these huge.
And very rarely you'll have like the innovators who kind of like end up making it like have some actual success, but like a lot of times it's the later people and it's never as good of music.
And you can't have the perspective in the moment, I don't think. But I do believe that there are bands right now that make huge impacts on culture and music culture. I mean,
I think what you're saying is like a kind of how would you put that? Everything's broken up into smaller pieces now. Like there's like a band that will influence this subculture here, and that will radiate out from that, and it's I don't know. And then you have like super giant bands like U2 or something, and Bono's saving the world or whatever, and I don't know. It's just I feel like it's like a important thing to think about, but it's like it's something you can't really answer. I think the only answer is to try to like be that, like.
Well, then there's always gonna be stuff that's watered down and stuff that's candy coated, and then on the flip side, there's always gonna be stuff that's meaningful and true and real. I mean, it's just you're just gonna have to sift through it. I don't know.
I guess my point is like, say like, what can you do about it? I mean, that's like saying like, how do you change everyone?
Right. Like, it has less to do with like the bands themselves and more to do with people.
I totally agree.
Like they have to look for that stuff. Everybody wants what's easy now. Like why do people eat crappy fast food? Because it takes a minute and it fills your stomach. Or like why do you listen to brainless pop music? Because I don't have to think about anything, or it doesn't confuse me or challenge me in any way. Or why do people read crappy romance novels or something, like, because it's easy. Yeah. And everybody wants to be.
I mean, I guess for what you can do personally, I guess, is just you can seek out that music that's meaningful to you,
Or make stuff.
or make it, or do your best to spread awareness for the music that you love, But just for the record, I like pop music. I think there's a lot of really good pop music too. So.
Yeah, I didn't mean to broad brushstroke.
No, there's a lot of good pop music, but there's also a lot of
Everything.
There's a lot of bad everything.
Yes, everything in its right place.
I think there's a bunch of ideas to try. I mean, you see Radiohead kind of trying something different and then going back, and see people giving music away. I don't know. It's hard because as a musician, you spend a lot of time creating this stuff and like time that you could be working doing something else, and so like you kind of have to make money to keep doing what you're doing in the capacity that you're doing it. And selling music is part of that. So as everything changes, that's a little scary. And I don't know. I think you hope people will find ways to support the artists that they like to listen to. But that being said, I mean, people can steal any of the music that they want very easily now. So it's you're kind of putting a lot on the listener, to do what they feel's right, and hopefully the band that like will be able to continue making music. But I don't know. I see some cool stuff happening with people starting to buy more vinyl. It seems like the people who are really into music are kind of craving for something, from the past, something that's more visceral, and I don't know. There's like a connection to that physical piece, and at the same time, we all love the newer technology of iPods and stuff like that make it really easy to take music with you, and you can't take all your records with you on the road. There's cool things to be said about all of it, but I think I don't know. I like that you're able to start getting vinyl with like a download card or something. I'm really into that idea, just because that way you have this piece and you also have it with you wherever you go. And
Yeah.
I'm into the idea of doing like, I guess this isn't necessarily answering the question, but I really liked doing this project where we had these smaller pieces and you could kind of really work on that rather than having 12 songs and you're trying to make that all work together when maybe it's not really supposed to. So I don't know. I'm in the idea of trying to do more smaller releases or I don't know.
Frequent smaller releases.
Yeah, just different stuff like that. I know, didn't Radio talk about the interview? They haven't done it yet, but
Yeah, like
that's like a couple years ago, I remember.
more than that, like probably 6-7 years ago. But yeah, I mean, going back to the question, I feel it's always been a struggle for me personally because it's a weird concept to me to sell music as a product, and your band is something that sells it. But at the same time, as musicians and artists, like that, we put all our time and energy into this, and we need to be able to sustain ourselves. So I don't know how I'm answering the question, but I don't know. I guess it's a hard thing, and it's getting harder, I guess is my point.
Gas prices too.
Yeah, gas prices.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, it's always been like, you don't make a lot of money off your records, but you go on the road and you can make money and sustain yourselves. But now, that's getting harder. It's tough.
Don't start a band to make a living. That was never a good idea, and it's not a good one
It's
at all
even
now.
worse now. Yeah. $100 a night? Yeah. Good luck getting to the next city, unless you are already wealthy somehow. It's not the same anymore. Sadly.
That was a good way to bring it down, Ed. And it's so sad.
Good luck starting band,
It's
yeah.
not the same anymore. No, but play music because you love playing music. That's why we started, and that's why we continue doing it. So. I feel like people have like a false view of like what, I don't know. I guess in our experience though, like maybe it's different for other people, but we've never had anyone telling us like what we like couldn't do or could do. Like, I mean, there's been suggestions, but that's at any label you're at ever. And I think the innocence Ed's talking about is more of like,
Yeah, it didn't have to do with creative freedom, I don't think at all.
just more of like before it's a job at all. I think that there's a different vibe to it, and it's not that it ceases to be your love and your art because it's a job as well, but there's a different quality to it, and there's just no way to around that. Like if you're gonna start playing music for a living, like there is something that's lost, I think.
But I feel like at the same time, I agree, but I feel like at the same time with the Alchemy stuff, since we did do it on our own, and we're pretty much totally free of a label for doing all of it. I really felt like it was almost kind of like going back to those roots, where it was just the four of us kind of doing it to do it. And I remember finishing the record and sending it out to get mastered, and at that point I was like, oh crap, people are going to hear this, like people are actually going to listen to this, which is cool because
there wasn't like kind of the big brother, like no matter if they're saying nothing or just hinting whatever, it's like no one's really waiting for this. It's like we're just
doing
in a
it.
little studio.
Yeah, so it's in that sense, it was cool because I literally forgot the fact that we were making a record. You know, I thought it was just kind of something we were doing.
I think almost more of the freedom is like, sorry. I think the freedom that we feel is more so from like people's conceptions of who we are as musicians and what we like and what we do, more so than a label wanting us to do something. Like, I think how we've made these past few records has been really honest and not really worrying about what people's reactions might be, and I think that's the most freeing thing that we've done as a band, is just doing exactly what we want to do, despite, you know,
As much as you
people
want.
trash talking or thinking that we're horrible now or whatever. It's like, yeah, we're horrible to you, but we're so happy. So, I mean, too bad, but honestly, it's like the best feeling in the world. It's like, I think that was the freedom that I feel like people, once they know your band, they have this image of what the band is, and a lot of bands, I think, feel bound in that idea rather than just creating what they want to create at the moment and just doing it. And yeah.
I grew up, I'm sure, like most people, loving the Star Wars movies before they were ruined later by George Lucas's insanity. Yeah, great movies. Explorers. My dad was like really into technology, so we had VHS tapes pretty early. He would just tape everything that was on like HBO or TV, and so we had a big wall full of like all these VHS movies. I don't know. Flight of the Navigator. That was a big one.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was just talking.
I don't think I've
You never
that.
seen Flight of the Navigator?
I
Whoa.
don't think so.
Dude.
I'm Japanese, man. Give me a break. I was watching Gundam.
I would say my favorite movie as a kid was probably The Natural, just because it's an awesome baseball movie, especially when you're a kid. And iPod? What's on my iPod? Many things. And by the time you watch this, it'll probably be something totally different.
Last month.
Lots of Radiohead, lots of Longmont, Potion Castle, which is prank phone calls that you should listen to. What else? Emily Haynes, Helms Ali, Zozobra, Pedro the Lion.
By the way, on NPR's website, they have a ton of concerts that you can get as podcasts. It's awesome. It's really cool. There's like hundreds of concerts just sitting there, and most of them are really good. I was just listening to the Tom Waits one, and it's like Arcade Fire, Jenny Lewis. Yeah, a bunch of stuff. Black Keys, 2 Black Keys concerts. Josh Ritter. I've been listening to Josh Ritter a lot in the past couple months. I don't know. I've been listening to Painting. I went through like the whole Pedro the Lion catalog the other night while I primed my front room in my house.
My favorite movie as a kid was definitely Top Gun.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely Top Gun. I still have the vinyl soundtrack. It's pretty cool.
Kenny Loggins,
Yeah,
ripping it up.
playing with the boys. iPod. I don't know. I get stumped with this always.
Never Ending Story. That was my yep. My parents' dog looks like Falcor. Buddy. I've actually been listening to a lot of Pedro the Lion and Color Revolt and Modest Mouse and Slint and I don't know, Pink Floyd. Just all over the place.
don't think we have any idea of where we're gonna go musically with this next record. We start getting ideas together.
It's mostly electro pop, though.
It's pretty much like every record. It's just whatever comes out of us, honestly.
I think we're in a cool spot after doing the last record where it's like cleansing of the palette almost, just like, oh, what do you want to make now? I put it before like this before, but I feel like it's almost like starting a new band with the same dudes, just like, let's start a new band.
Yeah, except
And you wish you could rename it, but
yeah, except you have no idea what that band's gonna sound like. I honestly have no idea. It's kind of. I was talking to my wife about this the other day. It's almost scary. Like I have absolutely no idea. Like what you guys have been writing, or like what you've been, like what kind of stuff you guys have been coming up with. Like I have a couple ideas that I've written that.
that's I think
I have
what's
no
always
idea.
made our band
Yeah,
like
that's true.
what
I know,
it
it's
is.
totally
Just
true,
like, oh really? You're thinking that? Okay, let's put it together.
It's like, let's start a ska band. I don't know any dudes who play the horn. Do you? That's the biggest. That's the biggest thing. And then getting a dancer too.
Riley had a demo that was, you originally wrote that drum part on drums, and then you
No.
you
That
wrote,
was Whaler.
oh yeah.
That was just something.
We had like so many parts for this record, though. I mean, some parts were like from leftovers from another record, or just little bits, and they're all floating around. And I think Riley always has the most parts. Just like they'll be like honestly like 5 seconds, and it'll just be like, and he'll show it to us, which is great because it's like. For me, I always end up like using someone else's idea, and it sparks my mind to do something
That's
else.
how my
but-
brain works.
So he had a part, and
I think it was mostly done when Riley handed it over. There's a lot of the synth. Yeah, a lot of the synth programming, and then Dustin took it, made a song, like a full structured song out of it. And then recording-wise, we actually just used a lot of the Reason stuff for it, but we actually recorded the drum sounds and replaced them and put them in Reason and used our own samples. I remember the snare we recorded through headphones, like used the headphone speaker as a mic. And we did a lot of weird stuff to kind of make it sound electronic. I think one of the things is we recorded like somebody tapping their fingers on a shaker or something like that. The kick.
that's weird that you replace all those. It's cool.
Yeah. So it's actually kind of cool. Like all the sounds on, the drum sounds at least on Silver Wings is actual organic drums. Just recorded weird.
Weird to play.
Electro organic.
Because when I programmed it, I wasn't thinking about playing it. And then going back and looking at these grids and trying to figure out where the clicks and pops and clacks are. Clacks.
That's a Nintendo cereal.
Clacks?
Clicks, pops, and clacks.
That's a good question. There's definitely, it's kind of the bane of touring sometimes that you're in really cool places and you don't get to see them. But there are the times where, you have a day off before or after a show, or like you're able to go see the city that day because you're playing downtown. But yeah, sometimes it's a bummer. You'll be like in Germany and you're like, I didn't see anything today. I didn't.
Saw the inside of a club.
Yeah.
Cool bathrooms.
So there'll be random places like Copenhagen. We've got to spend like a lot of time in just because it's on the way to Norway. So we like the last tour we were really going in Europe. We went up, stopped on the way to Norway, came back, played it, and had a day off there or something. So and I love that city. But maybe I would love all cities if I could see them more.
I think that's a common misconception about touring. People are like, yeah, you get to see all these cool places and you just party and play music. It's like, well, there's a lot more that happens.
Well, I feel like you get my problem with it. Well, my problem with it is like, especially like when we go to places like Europe, I will, without a doubt, make the most of it. You know what I mean? I'm always walking around before the show, and But I mean, my problem with it is that I'll see the city, but I don't get to experience it. You know, like I feel like when I travel, I want to experience the culture and experience the country, which I feel like I haven't gotten to do anywhere.
And it's more like you're trying to, the only way you're able to see it is by like being like hyper tourist.
Right.
Yeah, like wake up in the morning, stroll out of the bus, walk around for 2 hours, come back, sound check, walk back out for a little more, come back, play the show. I mean, it's fun, and I'm not complaining, but I definitely feel like once this is all over, it'd be nice to kind of take a world trip or something to actually be able to experience these cities that I've been in but not been able to experience.
Singing and playing is not, it's something that you kind of just have to learn for each song individually. I'm sure in general you get better as you do it, but there's a lot of songs where I used to be like, there's no way I can play this riff and sing this at the same time, but if you practice it, it just becomes like there's little grooves in your brain where, you know, your hand is in one groove and your singing's in another groove, and it just ends up working. But I don't know, every song has its own thing. I mean, lately we've been dealing with the struggle of trying to translate some of these songs that are, you know, a lot of keyboards or computer stuff going on, and bringing that into a live setting. And I think it's actually been pretty successful. We kind of didn't want to think about it while we were writing and have it, you know, negatively influence what we were doing. But like a song like The Wailer, I think, ended up being a really cool live song, and, you know, Ed's playing bass on it, whereas the record has like a synth bass, and me and Tevin are doing keyboards. Riley's playing real drums over the sample, so it has a different vibe to it, but I think retains a lot of the cool aspects of the recorded song.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's probably harder than the technical aspects of certain songs, especially with some of the new stuff, is just providing the feel and having it feel right. That is almost harder than like doing something that's kind of crazy. You just like making sure that mood is there, and like laying down that groove. Yeah.
It's like the part on the music instruction video where like there's beep bop boodaloo, and then there's like a
What?
there's always like on the instructional video there's always like, that's how you lay down the vibe, and then there's like this other frame
yeah.
comes in, and there's like a picture of a cool bass, and like ba-da-da-bee, and then it's like technique like comes in. Right? Wrong. Stop talking. Who invited him? Sorry. That's where my brain went.
For me, making it, I think Earth, just because it was the most stripped, and it was fun for me to record because the goal was to keep it as natural and, like, I guess, organic sounding as possible, which, not to say that that's easy, but I think for me it's a lot more gratifying, I guess. Like it, yeah, and in juxtaposition, like the Fire record was the hardest one for me to do because it, you know, everything's so dense, and I don't know, that stuff for me is hard to record. But yeah, Earth was fun because it was relatively painless and easy for me.
I think for me, playing-wise, the most fun was Fire, just because I really like the physical aspect of playing drums, and it was fun to, you know, hit hard and play and just let out some aggression. But I really liked making the Water disc because it was kind of a direction that we had never gone before, and getting to incorporate all these electronic ideas and layer stuff, and then approach the songwriting and recording in a way that we never had before, you know, piecing these ideas together, not jamming them out, you know, just sitting in a room and trying to put these pieces together and saying, does this work, does that work, and like building songs was fun and totally different. So that was kind of exciting.
My touring gear is I use SVT Classic Head and an SVT, or this is Ampeg, I'm talking about Ampeg 810 Classic cabinet. I like to use the Gibson Grabber basses, but I also use a Nash P-Bass. P-Bass and the Grabbers kind of have a similar tone. I just like the feel of the Grabber a lot as well. And I also play a Nord lead synth keyboard, and I run my bass and my keyboard through a pedal board that has line 6 delay, two line 6 distortions, a Boss reverb, an expression pedal that runs to the delay.
It's a little, don't you use the crazy other distortion?
Yeah, and then I have a ZVEX Fuzz Factory. It's a distortion. It's kind of crazy, but I really like using lots of different distortions and compressions on my bass, which are possible with the line 6 distortion. And delays are always always fun. And I think that's it as far as my stuff goes.
What kind of picks do you use?
Blue Dunlop.
Blue.
Yeah,
Blue.
the blue ones.
Any sort of Tortex.
My setup kind of changes a lot because I'm always kind of trying new things out. But for the most part, Vox AC30, which I think on this upcoming tour might be my sole amp, one and only amp. But on this last tour, I used the Vox AC30 in conjunction with
Somebody built this.
that little guy, which is a old Supro clone, yeah, that I got a kit built.
Sounds really good.
Yeah, it sounds really cool. Kind of like a classic Zeppelin kind of vibe. I think it's the same amp that Jimmy Page used on Led Zeppelin 1, maybe? So yeah, that's what I'm using as of now.
You actually created that and then sent it back in time.
Yes. Yeah, Jimmy Page actually used
He
that
used
one.
that
Yeah. Guitars, I'm using a Nash Tele, Fender Baritone Jaguar, Gibson Les Paul, blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
I'm using Line 6 Variax guitar that I've transplanted the guts into a Nash Telecaster, and basically it's like guitar modeling software, so it can sound like a variety of famous guitars, from Tellies to Les Pauls to Dan Electro, whatever, and I'm able to program in a bunch of different tunings. So I played the same guitar without changing it basically the whole show. And I also used the Line 6 Veta 2 amp, which is amp modeling stuff, and all my effects and stuff are in there. So I got into that about, I don't know, I got curious about, I like things to be efficient, and so I was thinking how I could cut down on, I don't know, having a bunch of different little things and how to make it all work together. So it's very efficient now. I have a guitar and an amp, and then just when I thought I got rid of like big pedal board, I moved it up onto a stand, and now there's a keyboard on that. So I play Micro Korg live, and then on Digital C, I'm running a CB mic into a Chaos Pad to do some of that live distortion stuff on there.
I use Zildjian cymbals, 15-inch Newbeat hi-hats, 21-inch Sweet Ride. For my left crash, I use a 22-inch K-Ride as my right crash. I use a 24-inch K Light Ride as my ride. DW hardware, DW 9000 double bass pedal, CNC drums, which is 8x14 rack. The depth is first 8x14 rack, 14 by 18 floor tom, 20 by 16 kick. I either use a 6.5 by 14 Ludwig Black Beauty reissue or a 7 by 14 CNC aluminum snare. Remo heads, usually coated Emperors on the toms, and like an Emperor X on the snare. Or I've been messing around with the Aquarian high energy snare because they don't break. And I use Vic Firth. Right now I use rock sticks, and I'm switching to HD9s because they're easier on my cymbals and drum heads and wrists and elbows and shoulders. Snares that always break. Always break my snare. Yep. And then electronics wise, I use a Roland SPDS pad to trigger like the regular stuff. SPDS pad to trigger little samples like segues between songs, or the weird kind of Latin-y break in Image of the Invisible, or the choir voices in For Miles. Just little things. And then for longer things, like if I'm playing along to a click on a song that has like electronic drums all the way through it, like Digital C or the Wailer or something, I have a Tascam mini disc player. And I think that is pretty much it. Metronome, Boss metronome for some songs that are kind of tempo sensitive, that need to be at a certain tempo or else they feel rushed or slow. And that is about it, I think.
Oh, I also playing Gibson Southern Jumbo for acoustic, and Seymour Duncan pickups and stuff.